Water level. Two simple words that strike fear into the hearts of gamers everywhere with the same impact as poison swamp and personal hygiene. These big old fish tanks have plagued the gaming space for years and are nearly universally considered to be some of the absolute worst levels in gaming. But why is that, do you think? Well, for whatever reason, it seems the introduction of a significantly large puddle causes most devs' brains to melt into delicious chicken soup. But water levels can actually be good. Oh, I'm serious, I've seen it. I am the resident gremlin, and join me as we discuss the do's and don'ts of water levels. Let's dive in, shall we? Do number 1. Do you actually need a water level? Arguably the most important question you need to ask. Is it worth it? I'll reiterate, water levels are hard to get right. You can't just drop a player in the ocean and call it a day, because if you do, I guarantee it'll go down like a ton of bricks and will drag the entire experience with it. There are so many moving parts that you need to get working in harmony that in a lot of cases they just don't get even remotely right. And if you're dead set on having an aquatic area, you don't even have to go in the water. Look at New Londo from Dark Souls. Still a water level, not in the water most of the time. A lot of ghosts though. Or even boot up Bioshock and play it for 30 minutes. That entire game is basically a water level and you barely splish or even splash at all. Don't number 1. Default to the tried and terrible. If you decide that you absolutely must have a dip in the big blue, you need to carefully consider the overall mechanics of it. So obviously you're going to look at older games for inspiration and you'll inevitably ask, if it worked there, why not here? And to that I say, don't you dare. It is no secret that water levels will consistently top worst levels of all time lists, and that because controls typically side anywhere between, okay, this is vaguely passable, and dear God, what have you done? And it's mostly because games just tried to shoehorn regular controls into dimensions they were never supposed to enter. It's gotten better in recent years, and first-person perspective goes a long way of hiding the worst of it, but there are titles that still use crouch to dive, jump to rise, coupled with weird 3D movement systems. We're in the 9th console generation now, we shouldn't be beholden to design philosophies from the PS1 era. And a lot of them even remove your ability to fight while swimming, but still flood the place with aquatic assailants. But don't worry, they'll likely give you some kind of weapon that only works down there because they realised it would be a problem, but seemingly couldn't be asked to actually fix it. DMC2 and Ninja Gaiden, I'm looking at you and your stupid bowguns. Do number 2. Understand what water is. This sounds really condescending, doesn't it? And I would say it's too harsh if I wasn't convinced game devs don't all come from a small isolated village in the ass end of the bloody Sahara. How else would you explain how the water physics are in some of these games? I mean, look at it! It's like wading through treacle. I want you to fill a bath with water and then drag your entire arm through it. There is not so much resistance that you're slowed to a crawl. So if you're swimming in a game, you shouldn't be slowed that much, especially when you consider most video game protagonists are likely at the peak of their physical shape. Even Mario. Especially Mario. Dude can leap 15 feet from standing, he has literally never skipped a leg day in his life. He should be swimming like a salmon, not whatever this is. Don't number 2. Put realism over fun. On the other side of that coin, don't focus on realistic water mechanics to the detriment of player enjoyment. And this is mostly focused on the games that have you walking along the bottom of the ocean rather than swimming. Because walking through water IRL is hard, a lot of resistance working against your body. But putting something like this in, say, a game about a miscoloured Yulipatiflin that has a penchant for travelling at extreme velocity, is probably going to piss off a lot of people. Now I could go on a massive tangents about the baffling design philosophy of 2D Sonic games' water levels, but for now I want you to compare the Labyrinth Zone to Aquarium Park in colours. And you'll notice that while they share similarities, the latter dials them back and still allows you to acquire speed even while underwater. Because it's way more fun! Imagine that! Also, normal people can't breathe underwater doesn't mean we all want to have to come up for air every 30 seconds to drag this nightmare out. Do number 3. There's more than just water down there. Here's a breakdown of what a lot of water levels consist of. The floor, that weird wet stuff, and the air. And that's it, just an empty, moist abyss. There is so much more down there than just sand. Really beautiful nature. Stuff we drop down there. Things that don't bear thinking about and we should probably never bring up again. Here's a good example. Compare Minecraft Oceans pre and post 1.13. Pre? Post. Pre. Post. Can you see just how much better everything is when water is actually populated with stuff? This even works for you if you've got an underwater base or waterways. It gives it character and makes it much more interesting and memorable than just leaving it barren. Do number 4. Get the ambience right. You can populate your water with stuff, but if the atmosphere doesn't fit, then it's all for nothing. You can't just stuff things in willy-nilly and have it work. Not everything can or should be a lush tropical oasis. Imagine a derelict sunken wreck or creepy underwater science lab with an upbeat tune and vibrant colours. It would be super jarring. You'd want something more sombre or eerie, with a washed out palette to keep the ambiance consistent. And you don't have to fit into the two extremes of super cheery and depressingly sinister. Look at Aquarium Park again. It has a very obvious Japanese aesthetic with deep and vivid colours and a theme that really hits a sweet spot of fast enough to encourage the trademark speed of the franchise, but still has the chill undertones that make it pretty relaxing. Definitely a water level, but just doesn't conform to the traditional water level extremes. Don't number 3. Water equals dark. Oh, good god, this one's annoying. There seems to be a massive misconception that the simple act of sticking your head underwater completely neuters your ability to see where you're going, either by throwing on the classic dark blue filter or by dramatically lowering your render distance for some reason. Light can penetrate to 200 meters deep easy, so why does it suddenly get super dark the moment I dip below the surface? But what if the seabed's been kicked up? Sure, I'd believe that, but why does it happen when my eyes go below sea level? But what if you're in a cave and light can't reach? Firstly, you're the dev, you decided to do that to yourself. Secondly, you are the dev. You can put lights down there. Heard of a little thing called bioluminescence? And who said light had to come from anywhere? Maybe it comes from the same place as the music. I mean, if you're going for a dark, claustrophobic underwater section intentionally, more power to you. That sounds utterly horrifying and I want to subscribe to your newsletter. But for the rest of you, don't just limit yourself to using archaic and downright daft concepts purely because everyone else is doing it. Those are my do's and don'ts for water levels, but I'm not done yet. You want proof that there's such a thing as a good water level. A true water level, and I have just the thing for you. You're probably thinking, he's going to say Subnautica, aren't you? Well, my dear viewer, you'd be completely wrong, you idiot. Because while Subnautica is extremely well designed, the entire game is built around aquatic exploration. If they somehow screwed the pooch on the core component of their game, I'd be fucking amazed. No, I'm talking about a game from the golden age of the PS2, a forgotten gem that's recently enjoyed its 20th birthday. Primal. I understand how insane that sounds. A PS2 game from 2003, nearly perfecting the water level when studios struggled to do it to this very day? Gremlin, I want what you're smoking. Firstly, you can't, it's mine. Secondly, shut up and listen. When I first played this game back in 2014 after going on a PS2 nostalgia binge, I was skeptical too. After first setting foot in the water, it all clicked. In the sections where you were walking along the bottom of the lakes, your speed was still there. While the water had its trademark blue filter, you could still see clearly, even in the cave sections. When you eventually got to swimming, it felt different, but it wasn't sluggish and you controlled like a dream. It even properly built the game's combat system to function underwater without some stupid tertiary weapon to make it work. And the best of all, it didn't just default to one of the water level extremes, but instead mixed them together in a way that the stark contrast of the industrial against the natural made the whole place feel alive and real. How have we not been able to replicate this since? The technology is right there.
It's impossible.
SCEE Cambridge
Was able to build this in
2003 on the PS2.
I'm begging you all, play this game. For the water level, yes, but the game itself is a damned delight. It's like finding forgotten knowledge from a bygone age. Emulate it, play it on the PS2, it's available on the PS4 if you want to go that way. Seeing is believing and you will not be disappointed. What do you guys think? Have I missed a golden rule, a faux pas? Are there any water levels you know that buck the trend and you'd consider great? I have been the resident gremlin and I'd go for a dip right now, but you know, gremlins,